Queens! Welcome back to my channel. I'm Sab if we've never met before, and this is my channel where I talk about my houseplants, mostly in passive hydroponic. So if you're interested in that kind of content, don't forget to hit subscribe down below. Today I'm going to be talking about how I maintain a lot of my plants in LECA. So this is something I get a lot of questions about on Instagram, and I just wanted to make this video to kind of address most of those questions. This is by no means expert advice. I just learned most of this from my own research and from experience, but I can assure you that this is what I have been doing for all of my houseplants, with a few exceptions, which I will talk about later as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is, let's start with what happens after you transition your houseplant. So you want to be waiting for the water roots to come out, right? That means that it's already ready to be placed in LECA. So what I want to talk about is, whenever you transition plants, whether through water propagation first or straight into LECA, you can expect these old roots or the soil roots down here to kind of shed away or just fall off. And if they're in LECA, you have to pull them out every 1 to 2 weeks to remove those manually, because if you leave those in there, when the water roots are fully formed, they could potentially rot because of those old roots, because the plant is essentially not using those old roots anymore since it has developed an entirely new system. This is also why I don't recommend transitioning a lot of plants at once, even though I am definitely guilty of having done that more than once. For example, if you transition 5 plants at the same time, then you would have to go through them every week or every 2 weeks and remove all of their old roots. And that's just a lot of work. So it's best to take it slow and transition, I would say 1 to 3 plants at a time, just so you can remember which plants they are and so it's more manageable for you. But that's it for the old water roots but that's it for the old soil roots, and you can expect them to completely shed away after about a month or so, depending on how extensive they are. The next part I want to talk about is something that I definitely get the most questions about, and that is how I give my plants nutrients. But first, when is it time to give your plants nutrients after transitioning them into LECA? So you may remember this little guy from our previous video. This is my Anthurium vitarifolium. I will link the video up here of how I transitioned this guy into LECA. But now you can see that he has some white fuzzy water roots, which means that he has adapted to LECA and can now take up water and nutrients more efficiently. That means that I can give this guy nutrients already, which I have been doing for the past week or so. So that is how you know that you can give your plants the nutrients they need already. Just look for those tiny water roots, no matter how small they are. As long as there's white fuzzy water roots, you can start giving them nutrients. Now I use Snap Hydroponics. I just buy these online and they're pretty cheap. You can see there's not a lot of it left, but I've literally never bought these again since I bought them about 8 months ago. So they go really slow, but obviously the bigger your collection is, the faster you will consume this, but they are generally worth the price. And I just use these for all of my plants and they seem to be thriving. I don't see any signs of nutrient deficiency or anything like that. So I'm gonna put the ratio on the screen for how much of this I use per gallon, and you can just follow that. But if you order this, it usually comes with an instructions card. And the only thing I have to say about combining these is that you have to put Snap A before putting in Snap B, and you have to put them in separate. You have to put Snap A before you put Snap B, and you have to give Snap A some time to get familiar with the water inside the jug before putting in Snap B. Because if you put Snap A and Snap B consecutively without any water, then some of the ingredients here or some of the chemicals here will cancel out what's in here and vice versa. And that goes for a lot of the nutrients as well, especially the more popular ones, which I do want to try next time. So I'll probably make a video about that if you're interested in that. And what else do we have to talk about for the nutrients? I think you can use whatever nutrient solution you like. Just look up the reviews, whatever fits in your budget or whatever is available locally. And just make sure to put them according to the instructions or according to what most people use. So for me, I put my nutrients in weekly, which means I change out the water in my plants every week or every 2 weeks if I don't feel like it. That's the beauty of passive hydroponics. It's really meant for people who are more passive, as implied in the name. So I will put my nutrients every week, just completely change out the water. And in between those, I will just top up the reservoir with regular tap water, just plain water. Another thing that I get asked often is how much water should you put in, whether it's plain water or nutrient water. And as a rule of thumb, you just put in 1/3 of the container. Now, I don't measure this, I just usually kind of estimate it by what I can see. I'll show you an example. So for this Monstera Thai, you can see that it is a bit lacking already. This is about 1/5. So I would fill this up until about here. Just where the roots kind of end, and I will talk about the root situation on this guy later on in the video. But yeah, as a general rule, just keep it around 1/3 of the pot, and it's up to you how to estimate that. But it's generally easy. Just, you can take measurements if you're nervous about it, but it's really fine if, it's a little more, a little less than 1/3 of the pot or the jar that you're using. Now, I quickly want to say here, I mentioned earlier that there are exceptions to that kind of care, and that is particularly with this part with the water level. So I don't use a reservoir for all of my plants. Most of them definitely have a reservoir, but some of them, like the more rhizomatic plants or perhaps cacti or succulents, I don't put a reservoir in them. I'm going to show you an example right now. So this is my Raven ZZ. I'm so happy with this right now, can I just say, because of this gorgeous new growth. And it wasn't doing anything for me. I think I had it for about 6 months with no movement in soil. And the moment, well, not the moment, but a few days after I transitioned it into LECA, I saw the little buds coming out, and I was so happy to finally see new growth. But anyway, the point is, you can see that there is no water here. There's just a bit of condensation from when I watered it. And that's the important point I want to get across. For some of these plants, what I do is I just water them like you would a regular plant in soil. I will just fill this pot with water and then kind of tip it over the sink until all the water falls out. And that's how it gets its water and its nutrient water every week. This is because I have read that Raven ZZs or just your regular ZZs will rot if you leave a reservoir in it. Obviously, that's not the case for everyone, but I just didn't want to take the risk for this one and some of my cacti and succulents. So I just found the schedule for this once a week. I'm going to fill it up with water, and it seems happy because it's putting out a lot of new growth. For some succulents that I do have, I just water them when they look like they need water, and they seem to be doing fine just like that. So, as I was sitting down after recording the video, I realized I completely forgot to talk about flushing, which is another important part of maintaining your plants in LECA or passive hydroponics. I just want to quickly run through it. I've likely talked about nutrients, and I'm editing this in. When you start putting nutrients into your solution, you also want to be flushing your plants at least once or twice a month. I usually flush my plants once a month. Some people do it once a week. It really depends on how often you are able to do it because it is a lot of work. I would say aside from transitioning the plant, this is the most labor-intensive part of having your plants in passive hydroponics. But it isn't that difficult. It's just quite difficult if you have a larger collection. So what it is, and I will use this as an example, basically just running plain water. This is a philodendron micans, by the way, and she's starting to trail, which I absolutely love. So anyway, you basically just take the plant and take it out of the cover pot, or if it's in a jar, you don't have to do this. You just run water through this entire pot. So this part, you run water through it. I will literally just put this plant under the sink and spray water with a bidet or the faucet through this pot for about, I don't know, 5 to 10 seconds. Just when I feel that I've rinsed away any of the minerals that are in the LECA. That is what flushing is for. It's to remove any of that buildup. You will notice some white powdery buildup on the LECA. That's just the chemicals kind of building up on top of the LECA, which you don't want to accumulate for a long time because it does prevent the plant's roots from taking up the nutrients that they need. I think that's it about flushing. So back to the original video. Now the last thing I want to talk about is when and how to repot your plants in LECA. And it's actually really easy. So let's go back to my Monstera Thai. You will see that the roots are climbing down to the bottom of the jar. And this is definitely a very common thing when you, or if you switch to passive hydroponics. Your roots will go a little bit crazy and try to reach down to the water. So you can leave it like this for a little bit, but you do want to repot it when the roots start touching the water. This is because, and I'm not sure how true this is, but I have experienced it, and I've read that other people have experienced it as well. If you let the water roots grow too long in the reservoir, it will stunt the new growth that's coming in. So for this one, the only reason I haven't repotted this is because there's a new leaf that's coming in right there. But when that new leaf hardens, I will adjust it. When I say repot, I mean just taking out the LECA and pulling up the plant and resituating the roots to be above the 1/3 level. So that's the beauty of LECA as well. You don't really have to go another size up unless your roots really don't fit in the container anymore. Although I do have a warning about if you do have a really extensive root system, as in there are a lot of roots in the jar, I would consider potting it, just because if the roots are too close to each other, I found that it could sometimes cause rot. But otherwise, I usually just stick with the same container for as long as possible. And if the plant seems happy, then I just reuse the same thing over and over again. So before I end this video, I just wanted to show you the rest of the plants that I converted the last time and how they're doing. So I've already shown you the Anthurium vitariifolium, but I think you can see it here a little bit. I actually haven't shown you the cutest thing. I mentioned in my last video that it had a little baby, and here she is. It's smaller than my pinky, which is just so adorable. So now I have 2 of them, and I'm so excited to watch them grow. I will probably trade or give this tiny one away. But you can see, I'm not sure if you can see that, it has water roots, which means I know it'll be okay in LECA. And for the rest of them, this is my Hoya obovata variegata, which has also developed water roots. I'm not gonna pull it out of the pot just because I don't want to disturb them, but it's doing well. I did check and it has water roots already. So the last plant that you might remember is my Hoya carnosa crinkle 8. She's also adjusted perfectly into LECA. Yeah, I can see some water roots in there, which I'm really happy about. And I almost forgot about my Hoya huskilliana variegata, which I actually separated into two plants. I just cut the other one last night. So this is the other half of it. You can see that the aerial roots are pretty fuzzy because I do keep it in the terrarium, my mini terrarium right here, so it really loves that. Anytime I don't want to kill a plant when I transition it, I just stick it in this terrarium if it fits. But I will try to show you the root system of the original plant that I transferred. You can see that it's stuck to the LECA, which means it's really happy, and you can see those white fuzzy water roots, which means that it has acclimated into the medium and it's just gonna grow from here. So I'm excited to make a fuller pot of this, and it's just such a gorgeous plant. I'm so excited to just see it kind of trail down in the future. So that's pretty much it for this video. It definitely went faster than I expected. But if you have any questions about how I maintain my plants in LECA or any clarifications at all, definitely leave a comment down below. And if you have some unique tips of your own, I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate it if you leave it in a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!